Shut up, human, we're freezing. Get in my bed now. Exiled alien woman's desperate order.
Ronan Vale never expected to freeze to death on an alien planet, yet here he was, buried in ice, his ship a smoking wreck behind him. Snowflakes the size of his palm drifted from the stormy sky, coating his short, dark brown hair in white. His breath came out in heavy clouds, his body trembling in the bitter cold. The planet Velthera was a frozen wasteland, and if the temperature didn't kill him, the local creatures probably would. His muscles ached as he tried to move. Bad idea. His legs refused to cooperate, the cold biting deep into his bones. He needed warmth, fast. Just as his vision blurred, a shadow loomed over him. A woman. Tall, broad-shouldered, and wrapped in thick furs. She had piercing violet eyes and long black braids woven with gold rings. She looked both fierce and beautiful, like a warrior queen from a legend. Ronan barely had time to register her presence before she grabbed him by the front of his jacket and lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing. "You are dying, human," she said, her deep, commanding voice cutting through the wind. "I will not let that happen." Ronan tried to protest. Darkness took him. The warrior's demand. When Ronan woke up, he was inside a cave, lying on soft animal pelts. A fire crackled nearby, its heat slowly bringing life back to his limbs. He tried to sit up but felt something. No, someone. Wrapped around him. He turned his head and froze. The warrior woman was pressed up against him, her muscular arms locked around his body. They were sharing body heat. Ronan's brain nearly short-circuited. What are you doing?" The woman blinked at him as if he had just asked why water was wet. "Keeping you alive." Ronan immediately tried to scoot away. Bad move. A strong hand gripped his arm and yanked him right back against her. "You will stay, human." Her voice was firm, unshakable. "It is too cold. You would die without my warmth." His face burned. "Listen, I appreciate the rescue, but humans don't just cuddle strangers like this." She tilted her head. Strange customs. She didn't let go. Ronan groaned. This was not how he imagined his day would go. Introductions and confusion. Eventually, the warrior woman released him, but only after she was sure he wasn't going to collapse from the cold. She sat back, watching him with the intensity of a hunter sizing up its prey. "I am Zyrana of Clan Drekath," she said. "You are in my territory." Ronan ran a hand through his hair, still trying to process the situation. Ronan Vale. Just a guy who crashed here by accident. Zyrana frowned. "You wear strange clothes for a warrior." "I'm not a warrior." Silence. She stared at him, then threw back her head and laughed. It wasn't a polite chuckle. It was a deep, booming laugh, full of disbelief. "You are no warrior," she repeated, still grinning. "And yet you survived Velthera's storm alone. Ha! Either you are a fool or the strongest human alive." Ronan sighed. He could already tell this was going to be a long, very confusing stay on this planet. Ronan sat by the fire, still trying to wrap his head around everything. He had crash-landed on a frozen planet, been rescued by a towering warrior woman, and woken up in her arms like they were longtime lovers. It was a lot to take in. Across from him, Zyrana was busy preparing something over the fire. She moved with effortless strength, her braided black hair swaying with every motion. Her violet eyes flicked toward him, sharp and unreadable. "You need food," she said. Ronan glanced at the mysterious chunks of meat roasting over the flames. He swallowed. What exactly are we eating?" "Frost beast." He stared at her. "That's not helping." She tore off a piece of meat and handed it to him. "Eat." Ronan hesitated but took a bite. To his surprise, it was good, a little gamey, but warm and filling. He nodded. "Okay, not bad." Zyrana smirked. "You doubt my cooking, human." "Hey, I'm just saying, where I'm from, we don't usually eat animals we can't identify." "A weak custom," she said, biting into her own portion without hesitation. Ronan sighed. This woman was something else. Misunderstandings and honor. As they ate, Zyrana studied him, her expression serious. You are unclaimed. Roman blinked. What? You wear no bond mark. You belong to no woman. Ronan choked on his food. Excuse me. Zyrana frowned. Did I speak wrongly? On Velthera, a warrior without a bond mark is seen as available. I assumed you were searching for a mate. Ronan's face burned. No. I mean, yes, I don't have a bond mark, but that doesn't mean I'm looking for one. Zyrana tilted her head. So you are a wandering male. I wouldn't say that exactly. She leaned forward suddenly, her piercing gaze locking onto his. Then how do you expect to survive? Roman opened his mouth, then closed it. This planet's customs were completely different from anything he knew. He wasn't sure if she was flirting with him or planning to adopt him. Before he could answer, Zyrana stood and grabbed her massive fur cloak. You will sleep in my bed tonight. Ronan nearly dropped his food. What? You are weak from the cold, she said matter-of-factly, and your body is not yet strong enough to survive the night alone. My bed is warm. Ronan's brain short-circuited. He held up his hands. Listen, I appreciate everything, but humans don't usually share beds with people they just met. Zyrana raised an eyebrow. Strange customs. Roman groaned. You keep saying that. She crossed her arms. Because it is true. There was no arguing with her. Zyrana had the confidence of someone who had never been told no in her life. Eventually, Roman sighed and rubbed his face. Fine. Just don't get any ideas. Zyrana chuckled. Oh, human, you are amusing. Ronan had a bad feeling about this. The unavoidable situation. That night, Zyrana's bed turned out to be a massive pile of soft furs in a hollowed-out section of the cave. It looked way too comfortable. Roman stood at the edge, unsure how to proceed. Zyrana, already settled in, gave him a look. Are you waiting for an invitation? He sighed, resigning himself to his fate. Carefully, he lay down, as far away from her as possible. Seconds later, a strong arm wrapped around his waist. Ronan stiffened. Will you wait? What are you doing? Keeping you warm, Zyrana said, pulling him against her. Her body was like a living furnace. The warmth was immediate, and despite himself, Ronan felt his frozen limbs relax. Still, his heart pounded. This was so not normal. But as the fire crackled, as the wind howled outside, and as Zyrana's steady breathing filled the quiet cave, Ronan found himself too exhausted to keep resisting. Maybe, just for tonight. He let sleep take him. Ronan woke up warmer than he had been in days. A soft weight pressed against his chest, and a strong arm was draped over his waist. For a few blissful seconds, he forgot where he was. Then, reality hit him. His brain short-circuited. Zyrana was holding him, like a big, overprotective wolf. Her powerful form curled around him, keeping him close. He swallowed hard. Okay, stay calm. Moving slowly, he tried to wiggle free. Bad idea. Zyrana grumbled in her sleep and tightened her grip. Ronan nearly choked. He was trapped. Oh, come on. He took a deep breath. Maybe she'd wake up on her own. Nope. She only pulled him in closer. Ronan bit back a groan. This was ridiculous. He was a grown man, a pilot, a survivor, and yet he was completely at the mercy of a sleeping alien woman. Well, at least she was warm. A warrior's wake-up call. Minutes passed. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind howled through the frozen cliffs. Then, without warning, Zyrana's eyes snapped open. Ronan froze. For a moment, she just stared at him. Then, before he could react, she flipped him onto his back and straddled him, her dagger already drawn. Roman panicked. Wait, it's me. Zyrana blinked. The tension vanished in an instant. Oh, it's you. She sheathed the dagger like nothing had happened. Roman let out a breath. Do you always wake up like that? A warrior must be ready at all times, she said simply. Well, I'd like to not get stabbed first thing in the morning. Just saying. Zyrana smirked, amused by his frustration. You are still alive, human. Be grateful. Roman sighed. He had no comeback for that, an unexpected invitation. After they ate, Xyrana grabbed her fur cloak and weapons. Come, we have work to do. Ronan frowned. What work? She looked at him like it was obvious. You are mine now. My clan will wish to see you. Ronan nearly choked. Hold on, Wechet. You slept in my bed. You shared my warmth. This is known as a bonding act on Velthara. Ronan's jaw dropped. It's not how it works, he's for humans. Xyrana grinned. It does here. Ronan groaned and rubbed his face. He was too tired to argue about alien customs. So what happens when we see your clan? They will test you. Ronan squinted. Test me how? Strength, intelligence, worthiness. Ronan's stomach sank. That sounded like a death sentence. A dangerous journey. They set out into the ice-covered valley, icy wind whipping around them. Xyrana moved with ease across the frozen landscape. Ronan? Not so much. He slipped at least 5 times. Xyrana watched him struggle with an amused smirk. Your legs are weak. Ronan gritted his teeth. Not weak, just not made for this frozen nightmare. She chuckled. You are lucky I find you entertaining. Ronan sighed. Great, I'm a walking joke. Then, a deep growl rumbled through the air. Ronan stopped cold. Oh, what was that? Xyrana's expression hardened. She slowly reached for her weapon. Frost stalkers. Ronan's pulse spiked. That sounds bad. Very. From the mist, 2 hulking creatures emerged. They were like wolves, but bigger, muscular, covered in thick, spiked fur. Their glowing blue eyes locked onto the 2 travelers. Xyrana grinned. Now, human, show me your worth. Ronan groaned. Of course. Ronan's heart pounded. The frost stalkers circled them, massive claws scraping against the ice. Their glowing blue eyes locked onto him, assessing their next meal. This seems bad, Ronan muttered. Xyrana grinned, baring her sharp teeth. Only if you are weak. Ronan groaned. Why did she always say that? One of the creatures lunged. Xyrana moved like lightning, dodging aside and slashing her blade across its flank. The beast roared in pain but didn't fall. The second stalker charged straight at Ronan. He barely had time to react. Think fast. Man versus monster. Ronan dived to the side, barely avoiding the creature's snapping jaws. He hit the ice hard, rolling to a stop. The stalker spun around, snarling. Ronan searched his belt. No gun, no knife, just a flare. Flare. Fire. He grabbed it, flicked the cap off, and ignited it. A bright red flame burst to life. The frost stalker hesitated. Ronan grinned. Yeah, that's right. You don't like fire, do you? The creature growled, but kept its distance. For a second, Ronan thought he had the upper hand. Then, the first stalker, ***, the one Xyrana had wounded, ***, charged him from the side. Oh, come on. It slammed into him, knocking the flare from his hand. The fire sizzled against the ice. Ronan skidded across the frozen ground, gasping for breath. The creature loomed over him, drool dripping from its fangs. Ronan braced himself. Well, this is it. Then, ***, a spear whistled through the air, ***, and pierced the beast's skull. The stalker collapsed instantly. Ronan turned his head. Xyrana stood tall, another spear already in hand. Her violet eyes burned with battle lust. Are you still alive, human? Ronan groaned. Barely. Proving his worth. The second frost stalker snarled in fury, lunging toward Xyrana. She crouched low, ready to meet its charge. Ronan gritted his teeth. No way was he going to let her do all the work. His eyes darted to the fallen spear. If she can throw it, so can I, right? Ronan grabbed it, lifted the heavy weapon, and took aim. Just like throwing a javelin, if javelins weigh a ton. He hurled the spear with all his strength. For a split second, he thought he had missed. Then, the spear pierced the creature's side. It screeched in pain and staggered. Xyrana didn't waste a second. She leaped forward and finished it with a single strike. The valley fell silent. The frost stalkers lay still. Ronan stared at the scene, panting. Holy hell, I actually hit it. Xyrana turned to him, studying him with new interest. Perhaps you are not completely useless. Ronan laughed breathlessly. High praise coming from you. She smirked. Do not let it go to your head. A warrior's approval. They continued their journey. Xyrana's demeanor had shifted. Before, she had seen Ronan as a fragile human, barely worth her attention. Now, she watched him differently, assessing. Curious. You fight without proper weapons. You think on your feet. I expected you to run. Ronan snorted. Yeah, well, humans don't go down easy. Xyrana grinned. Good. My clan will test you harder than this. Ronan groaned. Great. Looking forward to it. As they walked, Xyrana reached into her cloak and tossed something at him. Ronan caught it, a small curved dagger. He looked at her, surprised. You're giving me a weapon? You will need it. Try not to die, human. Ronan rolled his eyes. Gee, thanks for the encouragement. She only laughed. Ronan's boots crunched against the ice as he followed Xyrana up the frozen mountain pass. The wind howled, carrying flurries of snow across the jagged peaks. His hands were numb despite the thick gloves he wore, but Xyrana didn't seem to notice the cold. She walked ahead, her dark cloak billowing around her armored frame. Even after their fight with the frost stalkers, she moved with the strength of a warrior, unyielding, fearless. Ronan, he just wanted a hot drink and a warm bed. Are we almost there? He asked, breathless. Yes, my clan's stronghold is just beyond this ridge, Xyrana replied, not slowing down. Ronan sighed. Fantastic. Can't wait for the warm welcome. She smirked. Do not expect one. The watchful eyes of the clan. As they reached the top of the ridge, Ronan froze. Below them, nestled in the valley, was an imposing fortress of ice and stone. Towering spires of crystal blue rock stretched toward the sky, their surfaces etched with alien runes. Warriors in black and silver armor patrolled the walls, their curved blades reflecting the pale light of the twin moons. Even from a distance, Ronan could feel their watchful eyes on him. Stay close, Xyrana murmured. They do not trust outsiders. Ronan exhaled slowly. Yeah, I figured. They descended the ridge, their footsteps echoing as they entered the stronghold's massive stone gates. Inside, hundreds of warriors had gathered in the open courtyard. The moment Ronan stepped in, the crowd fell silent. Well, this is uncomfortable. A warrior stepped forward. He was taller than Ronan by a head, his silver hair tied back in thick braids. A scar ran across his left cheek, and his piercing blue eyes locked onto Ronan with suspicion. You bring an off-worlder here? The warrior asked Xyrana, his voice deep and commanding. I do, Xyrana said, standing firm. The warrior's gaze flicked to Ronan. And what is he? A pet? Ronan snorted. Funny, I was about to ask if you were her pet. The crowd stirred. A few warriors even laughed. Xyrana's lips curved into a grin. The warrior, however, was not amused. He took a step forward, towering over Ronan. You speak boldly for a weakling. Ronan crossed his arms. And you talk a lot for a guy who hasn't done anything yet. The warrior's eyes narrowed. We shall see if you are worth my sister's protection. The challenge. Before Ronan could react, the warrior lunged. Ronan barely had time to raise his arms before a heavy fist slammed into his gut. He doubled over, gasping. Oh, okay, we're doing this now. The warrior didn't wait. He swung again. Ronan dodged to the side, barely missing the blow. He reached for his new dagger, but before he could draw it, a powerful kick sent him sprawling across the ice. The crowd roared in approval. Xyrana watched, her expression unreadable. Fight back, human, she called. Ronan gritted his teeth. All right, fine. You want to fight. He rolled to his feet, dodging the next attack. Then he saw his opening. The warrior swung too wide. Ronan ducked, slipped behind him, and kicked the back of his knee. The warrior staggered. Ronan didn't stop. He spun around and slammed his elbow into the warrior's ribs. The impact echoed in the courtyard. The crowd fell silent. The warrior turned, glaring. Then he grinned. Not bad, human. He reached out, clasping Roman's shoulder. You have spirit. Perhaps you will survive after all. The crowd cheered. Xyrana smirked. Welcome to my clan, Ronan. Ronan groaned. Great, does this mean I get a warm bed? The warrior laughed. No, but you will not freeze alone. Ronan sighed. Of course not. Ronan sat by the roaring fire, cradling his sore ribs. The fight had ended hours ago, but his body still ached from the beating he took. Around him, the warriors of Xyrana's clan laughed, drank, and shared stories in the great hall, a massive chamber carved into the icy mountains. The stone walls glistened with frost, reflecting the golden glow of the torches. Furs and thick woven banners hung from the ceiling, each marked with strange alien symbols. The scent of roasted meat filled the air, making Ronan's stomach growl. Across from him, Xyrana sat, watching him with amusement. You fought well today, she said, breaking a piece of flatbread and handing it to him. Roman took it with a sigh. You mean I survived? She smirked. Same thing. Roman took a bite of the bread. It was warm, soft, and slightly sweet. He chewed slowly, watching as a large warrior approached their table. It was Varish, the man who had tested him earlier. The silver-haired warrior crossed his arms and nodded. You are not as weak as you look, human. I approve. Ronan wiped crumbs from his mouth. Well, thanks, I guess. Varish chuckled. But one victory is not enough. You are in our clan now. That means you must learn our ways. Ronan groaned. Let me guess. More fighting? Varish grinned. Of course. And training. You must grow stronger if you are to stand beside Xyrana. Roman glanced at her. She looked completely unbothered by this arrangement. In fact, she seemed pleased. He will learn, she said, lifting her drinking horn. Tomorrow. Roman sighed. Why do I feel like I'm in for a terrible time? The cold truth. Later that night, Roman collapsed onto the bed of furs Xyrana had given him. It wasn't exactly a bed, more like a pile of soft animal pelts thrown together in a corner of the chamber. But after the day he had, it felt like heaven. He groaned, pulling the fur blanket over himself. The warmth spread across his tired body. Finally, he could sleep. Then, the cold hit. A brutal gust of wind slipped through the cracks in the stone, making him shiver violently. The furs weren't enough. Ronan gritted his teeth. Great, just great. He curled into himself, trying to conserve body heat, but the freezing air seeped into his bones. He had fought alien beasts. He had survived an honor duel, but now his greatest enemy was hypothermia. Just as he started cursing his luck, heavy footsteps approached his bed. Xyrana stood over him, arms crossed, her midnight black hair spilling over her shoulders. You are shaking, she stated. Roman huffed. Yeah, no kidding. She let out a long sigh before pulling off her thick cloak. Move over. Ronan blinked. Ha. Move. Now. Before he could protest, Xyrana dropped onto the bed beside him. She yanked the fur blanket over them both and wrapped an arm around him, pressing her warm body against his back. Ronan went stiff. Ooh. Do not be foolish, human, she muttered, her breath warm against his neck. It is the only way to survive the cold. Ronan swallowed hard. Right, just survival. Xyrana hummed in amusement. Yes, survival. As the firelight flickered across the chamber walls, Ronan felt his body finally relax. The warmth of Xyrana's presence chased away the cold, and for the first time since arriving on this frozen world, sleep came easily. Ronan woke up feeling warmer than ever. For a moment, he forgot he was on an icy alien planet. The soft fur blankets, the dim firelight, and the steady warmth against his back made him think he was still on Earth, tucked away in some cozy cabin. Then he shifted slightly, and something tightened around him. His heart skipped. Xyrana's arm was still draped over his waist. Her slow, steady breathing tickled the back of his neck, and her body was pressed firmly against his. Roman froze. He had survived a brutal duel, freezing temperatures, and impossible alien traditions, but now he was in the most dangerous situation yet. Slowly, carefully, he tried to inch away. Bad idea. Zyrana let out a sleepy growl and tightened her hold on him, pulling him back against her. "Where are you going?" she murmured, her voice still thick with sleep. Ronan stiffened. Just stretching." She let out a low hum. "You are warm. Stay." He wanted to argue, but the warmth was nice. So he stayed. Morning trouble. When Ronan finally managed to escape the death grip of warmth, he made his way outside to clear his head. The sun was barely rising, casting a pale blue glow over the snowy landscape. The air was cold, but after last night, it felt almost refreshing. He inhaled deeply, only to hear chuckling behind him. Turning, he found Varish and 2 other warriors watching him with knowing grins. "Slept well, human?" Varish asked, raising an eyebrow. Ronan crossed his arms. "I don't know what you're talking about." The warriors laughed. "No need for denial," one of them said. "Zyrana has chosen you. It is clear now." Ronan frowned. "Chosen me? For what?" Varish smirked. "To be her mate, of course." Ronan nearly choked on air. "Excuse-me." Varish tilted his head. "You share a bed. You survived the trials, and she keeps you close. These are the ways of our people." Ronan rubbed his temples. "Look, she was just keeping me from freezing to death. That doesn't mean." "She let you live, human," Varish interrupted, his tone amused. "That alone is more than most get." Ronan groaned. Why did everything on this planet have to be so complicated? More tests await. Before Ronan could argue further, a loud horn echoed through the mountains. Immediately, the warriors straightened. "What's happening?" Ronan asked. Varish's expression hardened. "A challenge has been issued." "Another fight." Ronan sighed. "Who is it this time?" Varish pointed toward the large stone gates. Ronan followed his gaze and saw a tall, broad-shouldered warrior stepping into the village square. His pale blue skin was scarred from countless battles, and his piercing silver eyes locked onto Ronan. "That," Varish said, "is Zyrana's former betrothed." Ronan's stomach dropped. The warrior unsheathed a massive blade, pointing it straight at him. "I challenge the human," he declared, his voice booming across the village. "He is unworthy of her." Ronan sighed deeply. Of course. Ronan stared at the massive warrior before him, trying to process the situation. "You must be joking," he muttered. Zyrana's former betrothed, a towering wall of muscle named Kordak, looked anything but amused. His silver eyes gleamed with rage and challenge. "You are weak," Kordak growled, "unfit for Zyrana." Ronan sighed. "Yeah, well, she seems to think otherwise, and last I checked, she makes her own choices." The surrounding warriors murmured. Some smirked at Ronan's boldness, while others waited to see if he would survive the next 5 minutes. Zyrana finally stepped forward, arms crossed. "Kordak, stand down." Her voice was firm. "This is not your decision." Kordak's fists clenched. "He is not one of us." "Neither was I, once." Zyrana snapped. That shut him up. But after a tense moment, Kordak sneered. "If he is truly worthy, let him prove it in battle." Ronan groaned. "Of course, more fighting." Zyrana turned to Ronan. "You do not have to accept." Ronan sighed. "Yeah, but if I don't, this guy's gonna hover over us forever, right?" Zyrana hesitated. "Yes." Ronan nodded, rolling his shoulders. "Fine. Let's get this over with." The warriors cheered. A duel unlike any other. The village square was cleared within minutes. Ronan stood at one end, gripping a strange curved blade. It was heavier than anything he'd used before, but he had no choice but to adapt. Across from him, Kordak loomed like a walking mountain. He wielded a massive axe, his stance confident. Varish stepped forward. "Combatants, you will fight until one of you yields or can no longer continue. No killing blows." Ronan exhaled slowly. "Great. Just survive a fight with an alien bodybuilder. No problem." The horn sounded. Kordak charged. Ronan barely had time to move before the axe slammed into the ground where he had been standing. The force shook the earth, sending snow and dust flying. "You run," Kordak taunted, pathetic. Ronan gritted his teeth. Time to stop playing defense. Instead of retreating, he lunged forward, ducking under Kordak's swing. He slashed at Kordak's side, but the warrior's armor deflected the strike. "Too weak," Kordak laughed. Ronan adjusted. He couldn't overpower this guy, but he could outthink him. He let Kordak swing wildly, dodging each blow. The warrior grew frustrated, his attacks becoming sloppier. "Fight me properly," Kordak roared. "You mean stand still and let you hit me?" "No thanks," Ronan shot back. The watching warriors laughed. Kordak, furious, overcommitted to a massive swing. That was the opening. Ronan sidestepped, slamming the hilt of his blade into Kordak's wrist. The axe dropped to the ground. Before Kordak could react, Ronan swept his legs out from under him. The massive warrior collapsed. Ronan jumped onto Kordak's back, twisting his arm into a painful hold. "Yield," Ronan ordered. Kordak struggled. "Never." Ronan sighed. "Okay, but if I break your arm, I'm not fixing it." Kordak gritted his teeth. The pain was real. Finally, he slammed a fist onto the ground. A yield. The warriors erupted in cheers and howls. Ronan let go, stepping back. Kordak pushed himself up, glaring. For a second, Ronan thought he might attack again. Instead, Kordak grunted. "You fight like a coward. And yet I won," Ronan said, smirking. Silence. Then Kordak laughed. A deep, booming laugh. "Fine, human, you win. But if you mistreat Zairana, I will break you." "Noted," Ronan muttered. "A warrior's choice." Later, as the celebrations died down, Ronan sat with Zairana near the fire. "You did not have to fight him," she said softly. "Yeah, but I wanted to," Ronan admitted. "Not just for me, for you." Zairana's violet eyes softened. "You are unlike any mate I ever imagined." Ronan grinned. "And you're the scariest woman I've ever met, so I guess we're even." She chuckled. Then, to his surprise, she leaned closer, resting her forehead against his. It was a gesture of deep affection in her culture. "Sleep, Ronan," she murmured. "Tomorrow, we face the future together." As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Ronan smiled. He had come to this world alone, unprepared and completely out of his depth. Now, he had a place, a purpose, and a warrior queen at his side. And honestly, he wouldn't trade it for anything.